So welcome to the Ecological Footprint Lab. This lab is really a powerful one, but there's a few things you need to know before you get started. And the first one is to take off your sensitivity feelers, because depending on how you answer the questions that the Ecological Footprint Survey has, will produce answers, and those answers can somewhat be feeling invasive. And I've had students who have been personally offended by their scores. And they have a right to feel offended. That is their personal choice. But I'm asking if you go in this knowing what I'm fixing to share you about the assignment, that you probably will not end up in the same situation. And I'm going to give you a few example specifics as we go through and take the survey on my own and kind of show you with what happens. But I need you to think about what an ecological footprint really represents. And it is easy to conceptualize maybe with thinking about a car. So we all know that cars burn fossil fuels, but that's just part of the story. Everything about the car required manufacturing, which required raw materials to be extracted from earth or produced in chemical manufacturing plants or in other types of industrial processes. Immense amounts of energy needed to produce it. Water needed to produce it. Those all go into the factor of what an ecological footprint looks like. So even when you go to the grocery store and you're buying something simple like, am I choosing sushi over a steak today, or a chicken, or milk products, or maybe it's your favorite soda, other beverage, whatever it might be, fruits and vegetables, depending on what they are, how much manufacturing, processing, treatment all occurred, will actually yield a different ecological footprint number as opposed to those that don't require very much. Let me give you an example. So there's a place in Waco called Homestead Heritage, and they grow most everything on site. They have free range chickens and other meat products. They organically grow most stuff, so their scores would probably be substantially lower than if I went and purchased something that had been made in a manufacturing facility, let's say a chicken, for example, that had been cut up in a processing plant and put into packages and put in the shelf at my favorite grocery store. So you begin to see how all that fits together, right? So there's no wrong answer, and that's what I'm wanting you to hear from me. The one area that sometimes gets people a little concerned is when it asks how many people live in your residence or where you live. And depending on how you answer that, it may give you a recommendation for, if you had a whole bunch of people living in one place, it could say something like, maybe you don't need to have as many children. That does not mean you need to change your value system at all. Quite the contrary, you need to stay firm and true to your belief system. This is talking about a global idea, because if every person had the same ecological number that you did, footprint number, what would the world look like? And that's going to vary between all of us. Some people are extremely conscious about their choices in some areas of their lives. For example, they recycle everything, yet they get to-go food regularly. So their ecological footprint might be higher in the to-go food area, but lower in the recycling category. So all I'm asking is for a little bit of your time to do this and to answer questions in the most direct way without reading too much into it. And I'll go through it in just a second with you to show you how this works. As usual, answer all of the questions, and then when you get your results, save that, and you'll use those to answer your lab questions. Don't remove any of my questions. Answer in complete sentences. Turn in your lab form by the due date and due time. That's all there is to it. So let's show you how it works. So when you do get to the ecological footprint assessment, this kind of gives you the frame for what you're looking at. Basically, you're going to look at all the different areas of your life and how you use these different areas. And then you're going to simply look at areas of measure that you can do. So we're going to accept the cookies. We are going to take a look at the footprint calculator right here. And really all you have to do, you don't have to donate anything. So click right here, and then it's going to say some basic stuff. Again, accept your cookies, and then no, I don't want to change that here. So the first step, take the first step. So it's going to say how often do you eat animal-based products, and it lists beef, pork, chicken, fish, eggs, and dairy products. So you would just scroll one way or the other. For me, I eat meat fairly often, so I would probably put that. Then if you want to add more details, you can, and you can put in specific, so you can save it. Then you want to hit the arrow right here, go to the next one. How much of the food do you eat is unprocessed, unpackaged, or locally grown? So you may go, I don't know what that really means, meaning unprocessed hasn't gone through a processing plant. In other words, it's probably range grown, it's probably fresh. I might say if you were going somewhere locally here in Waco, Heritage Farms might answer none, but if I went to a local grocery store and I bought stuff off of the shelf, it would be all. Again, you can hit the add details to do that. Hit the next button. Then it talks about your house type. So you just would answer freestanding, no running water, you're in an apartment, a duplex, a luxury condominium. I happen to have a freestanding with running water, but there are places that don't. So answer best accordingly. What material is your house? You just simply answer what it is. Keep going. So how many people live there? This is the one that can really change the outcome of your questions. So you might play with it and see what happens. I currently have 2, but let's say I had 10 or more. And then you could look at the size of your home, and then we're going to put, I obviously don't have a 15,000 square foot home. Instead, I have about this size home, and there's only 2 of us that live there. So obviously the more people that I have in my home per square footage, you could see that that could change your sustainable. Do you have electricity in your home? Yes, I do. Is my energy efficiency good? I could answer it one way or the other. So some people would say yes, some people would not. There are some lights that my spouse leaves on all the time, so I'm going to put it right here, okay, and just kind of go with that. So what comes from renewable sources? About probably 10 or 15% comes from that. So I'm going to hit the 15% because I know what I have purchased. Compared to my neighbors, how much trash do I generate? Not as much because I do a lot of recycling. But let's say I had 5 trash cans. I might answer it this way. Then I'm going to say how far do I travel by some means of transportation that uses fossil fuels. So I would say per week, I might do 200-ish miles a week. And then on a motorcycle, I do 0 right now. There was a day that used not to be the same. My economy, I might have a moderate because I do have a flex fuel. But if, let's say you didn't, you might want to do insufficient. Maybe you had an electric car. You would be all the way over here. The point is you can see how it varies. When you travel by car, do you carpool? Sometimes, I might add. Never if you don't. Always if you do. Do you travel on public transportation each week? I don't do any because we don't really have much of that except for buses where I live. So do I fly each year? Yes, I do. I probably fly a total of maybe 50 hours with all of my trips combined. All right, then I can see how many Earths that I generated, and just ignore the donation, and then it will say, if everyone lived like me, how many Earths would there be? So, this is what you're trying to do. If you want to see the details, then you can look at the consumption, and this is where I think it gets pretty personal, and sometimes where people feel like they may not like the answers very much. And again, this is not about in any way you feeling like what you're doing is wrong. It's just a way for you to determine how you might improve in areas that you really could make a difference. Because if everyone would make a little bit of difference in the world, we could see these numbers drop in carbon matters, because the carbon concentrations equate to greenhouse gases. And since you've learned about the global climate budget, you now know about manipulating climate data, in other words, extrapolating data from a database. You can see how all of this fits together. And it starts with people making personal choices. And those personal choices get translated into business choices, and then into community choices, into legislation and policy, and then from policy into lifestyle changes. So that's the purpose of this lab. Take it with a grain of salt, whatever your result is, but just maybe identify one or two areas that you think you could personally, realistically make an adjustment that can help improve your ecological footprint. I really appreciate you doing this lab. Thanks so much. Fill it up like you have every week with your lab, and put it up there electronically. And don't take any questions out. Leave everything in place. Appreciate it. Bye.